Alright YouTube, so today's an exciting day. We have a Whiteline rear anti-roll bar to fit. So let's have a little look, see what's arrived. So there's the main bit, the anti-roll bar, or sway bar, whatever you want to call it. So four-way adjustable. A lot more parts arrived than I was expecting in regards to washers and nuts. So yeah, I'm a little bit confused by that, but that doesn't take much. So let's start with the sort of main components. So we have a sort of U-shaped bracket. We have the sort of housing for the bush. And we have this part as well, which sort of caters for the angle at the bottom of your beam. We had 4 of these nuts and 4 of these washers. I'm not saying this is correct. So the instructions are absolutely useless for this. I was expecting something a bit better in terms of instructions, but absolutely terrible. So we've got one sheet telling you not to grease the bush. Great. One sheet which tells you about the drop links. Great. This one doesn't really give you much in the way of instructions. Just tells you about different types of links. The only sheet that has any kind of instructions is this one. I'm gonna have to try and figure it out as I go along. Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say to follow what I do, because I'm just sort of making it up as I go along because the instructions are so crap. So back to the parts. This is what connects the spring seat to one end of the drop link. So I've kind of just fitted one there partially. So this bit attaches to the existing hole and thread, which is where your handbrake cable bracket attaches to. So the handbrake cable is going to have to go on there at the same time. And then through the middle between the spring seat and this bracket. So the instruction actually says to use that bolt with like a 40mm washer, which was on that side, and then this huge washer on the bottom, and then just a nut. So then we have the drop links, which mine came, it tells you to use washers either side of whatever you're connecting to, like that, but they came already on it, and they've got the nuts there and everything. It's got these little red plastic protector things. So yeah, that's all kind of pretty obvious really. Now you also get some little bolts which are supposed to be used for here, but they're, in my opinion, they're too short, because this isn't even reaching the end of the threaded, it's kind of like a nut that's been welded onto your beam. So luckily I've got some longer ones. I'm hoping this one will be long enough. The threaded part is about 3, whereas the one that came with it, it's about 20, just less than 20mm. I've also got some longer ones again, so as you'll see when I fit it which one I need, but I think you definitely need a longer one than what actually came with the pack. So yeah, bear that in mind. So you had 4 of these nuts, 2 of which you use on either, one on either side here. So I don't know whether these other 2 are just spare or what. They don't fit anywhere else. And I've got 8 washers. No idea what they're for, unless they're spare washers for your drop links, but it seems a weird thing to have spares of. There's 2 of these sort of, I don't know what they're called, like crush washers, or no, or like spring washer, I don't know, whatever they're called, I'm just making it up. There's 2 of them, don't know what they're for, unless they're supposed to go up here, which means that the existing bolt would struggle even more and probably wouldn't even get anywhere on the threads. So yeah, crap instructions. The bush mounts to the beam, there needs to be a 53cm gap between them. So what I've just been doing is measuring. It's hard to sort of find somewhere decent to measure from. I did it from this lip here over to this lip, found what was half, and marked out 26.5cm to get the inside edge of the bush carrier, and I've just sort of thrown that in there just to remind me that that's the inside marker. And then obviously I've done the same on that side. So that's where these are going to have to mount. I'm not sure whether this is even going to be long enough to go around. I know a lot of people struggle with that. I did a little test fit and I'm not sure. So those who have been watching the rear end refurb will know that this is an aftermarket beam. I've been going back and forwards trying to decide whether to use or not, and then I've decided to go for it. It seems to be the same diameters. I've measured from there across the other side, it's the same as my old beam. I've measured like from there over to there, and it's been the same. So it seems to be the same dimensions, it's just got a thinner torsion bar, which I'm sure you'll know already. So this, I was expecting these holes to line up with the existing holes that you can see, but they don't. And I thought, okay, is that because it's the aftermarket beam? But no, I tried it test fit on my old beam and they still didn't line up, so yeah, that's not too good either. Before I got this, I was trying to decide whether to get, I think it's called Ultra Racing, which is just a lot more simplified. It's just literally a bar that goes from the one spring seat to the other. Part of me wishes I had got that one because it would be a lot easier. But I don't know, maybe once I've done this, it'll be alright, and maybe it just looks a bit more difficult and a bit of more of a pain in the ass than at the moment while I haven't fitted it. So I'm a bit dubious that all that tension is in that little bolt there and that little bolt, which wouldn't be so bad if the hole it was going through was the same size as the threaded bit, so there was no movement it could do. But you know, as you can see, it's a great big hole, so there's scope for it to move around. It's only the other bracket which goes to there, which is supposed to stop it moving around, so I'm a bit dubious about that. I think I read last night about someone there's actually sort of getting pulled in that direction, so it just the washer, the big washer on top, just collapsed in on itself and being dragged down. So I'm starting to think whether I should elongate a couple of these holes so they actually line up with the holes on the beam, put a couple of bolts in there as well to give it a bit more strength. But what you've got to bear in mind is that you don't put a bolt through holes that you need for your spring sort of rubber mount thing, because it needs for these to go through. So yeah, I mean there's about 6 holes I think, so you've got a few spare ones you can use. But I mean at the moment I can't even get this on, because I think so it's going to be using that hole there, which is fine for that one, and then this one can't go through, so I'm going to have to elongate that one at least to get this on. For a kit that's designed for an FN2, it's a bit shabby really, considering things aren't long enough, instructions are crap, things don't line up. Be prepared to do a bit of alterations to get it to fit. I tried tightening, and I think there should be enough thread for me to tighten the bolts, the nuts, sufficiently. I couldn't get the drop links on once this is on, so what I'd have to do is take that bolt out there so it can move around freely. Thread, I mean I left this in to the actual anti-roll bar, put that end of the drop link in, tighten that up so it's pretty secure. And I was just checking as much as possible that the ends of the drop links as much a right angle to this shaft as possible, because you don't want them going off at like funny angles. In the instructions it says that you need to have a minimum of 14 millimeters of thread still inside here, otherwise it's just going to break. So I measured 14 millimeters and then got it all lined up. You can see it sits quite nicely. When I've polybushed anti-roll bars before, with the car settled on the wheels, so it's just rather than up on axle stands, I would get this part of the anti-roll bar sort of parallel to the ground, and then I would set the length of the drop links. But you can't actually do that because you can't leave the magical 14 mil of thread in here. So what I've done is basically gone to about 14 or 15 mil of thread still inside there, used that as my length, got it all lined up, and then whatever this angle is just whatever this angle is. I can't go any more that way. I'll take it for a fast road setup and they may adjust it, but I mean, this is the best I can get it. So the next problem is these holes. None of them line up with the holes on this, and unfortunately you need at least one of them. This one you need for the rubber spring seat, and also I think it's that one or that one, and one of the ones at the top either side, or it could be the one there. Anyway, can't get to it. You can just about see a bit of daylight through there and through there. So I'm not, to be honest, I'm not too happy with just having this bolt and this one. This one's fine, it's only one hole, it can't move anywhere, like it's not like a elongated hole. This one, if I swing over the top, if you remember, there's a great big hole here. So this doesn't even cover all of this hole, this washer. But even if it did, I'm not really that, because there's so much room for, there's going to be a lot of forces being applied to this anti-roll bar. I don't want this moving, so I'm thinking I put a bolt through one of these holes as well. So that's the plan, and hopefully between that and that, maybe I'll put two in, I'll see how I feel. It will hold it really securely to this spring seat. So like I said, this isn't a DIY. This is just me trying to figure out how to get it to fit and be safe and be useful. So copy me at your peril. Because this is over that way so much, it's pretty close to the inside of this, and I can't test fit it because obviously I can't put it on properly. I'm hoping it's just alright, it will just go on. It's a bit of pain. Considering this is designed for an FN2, I would have thought it'd fit a bit better. I know some people are going to be saying, well, this is you know, not the original rear beam, but I did try and do a test fit on the old beam and I had the same problem again. So don't know, maybe the beams have changed over the years, but just be aware, you know, you might have a beam that it fits, but then you might not, so just be prepared that you might need to do a few alterations to get to fit, and don't necessarily follow what this Muppet's doing. Alright, so I'm starting to rethink the whole extra bolts on where the spring seat is, because it's just taken me a really long time just to drill one hole, the hole for the little rubber bit to go through on the spring seat, and quite a few drills. So I may not I may have to rethink that, and if at a later date I'm finding that this bracket slipping, I may have to take it off, and that sounds like a right nightmare, and drill more holes. I don't know, I'll have to think about it. What I have done, so this, because it was offset over there, it wasn't clearing when I was trying to put this on. The rubber was getting caught on that, so it looked like that before. So you can see the big gap down the side. So what I've done on this one is elongated the hole in this 4cm washer, and I've added another washer, one of the 8 spare washers it seemed to come with. Maybe I'll look to see if I've got a bigger washer again, because actually that washer is only about 1mm, or probably a 2mm diameter bigger than the actual nut, so it could be a bit pointless actually. But yeah, that's what I've done, and then I've drilled that hole, which took forever. Right, so another long chunk of time later, and a lot of sweat later, I think I'm kind of pretty much there. Let me show you what I've done. I've managed to make a hole through here, which luckily I've got some spare, these high tensile sort of Allen key bolts. This one's, I don't know, probably about 30mm long. So I've put a washer either side, and then I've got a locking nut underneath. And then that hole and this one are for the spring seat. So that's that side done. And I've done this side as well. So those two for the rubber bits of the spring seat. I've elongated that as well, put another washer on it. And I've made a hole through here, again with the high tensile Allen key bolt, and washers either side, and a locking nut, one of those nylon locking nuts on the other side. So I think that's me done for the day. I'm very warm, very sweaty, so time to chill out and watch the football, have a few beers I think. You can see I've gone through a lot of drills. Don't know whether my drills are crap or this metal is particularly tough. Probably a bit of both. And I've used one of those sort of circular files to do the elongating and a few other bits. It's been my saviour today. Right, so I've tightened everything up on the anti-roll bar. This one I've not done particularly tight because that's got to come off again to get the handbrake bracket on there as well. Done this up tight. Unfortunately there's no torque settings anywhere, so you just got to use your best judgment. I've done my extra one I've added in up tight. I've done these up tight again. I mean, I've had problems with threads on drop links before, so I didn't go too crazy. I just did it, you know, pretty tight. Didn't go too mental with that one. It did take me a while to figure out how to stop the ball joint spinning, but you put an Allen key in this end here with a thread. And then these ones were a 17mm nut, so it's handy to have like a 17mm ratchet spanner. Obviously done the other side up tight. So I did that up first. I'm not saying this is the right order, but I made sure this was fairly tight, so this was situated in the right place. Did these up tight, did the brackets up tight. Let me show you how much is poking out. So that's how much thread I've got coming out. I'm not saying that's right, but I've done it equal on both sides. It's weird, it just keeps turning and turning and turning and turning. You're like, is this just going to break eventually? So it felt like it was starting to get tight, so I've done it that far. See how we get on. And then just lower this back down. Once I'd done all of that, I then tightened up the nut on the drop link. This one, I just had a 16mm spanner. I held on the main bit of it to stop it turning, and then a 17mm on this to tighten it up. Again, no idea of torque setting, so I just did it fairly tight without going too mental. I think it's ready to go on. I think if you were doing this on while the beam's on your car, you probably need to get it all in place and then tighten things up. My beam's not on the car, so there's no tension on anything. In my head, it's fine to tighten it all up now. Could be completely wrong, but yeah, that's the way I think anyways. So I was just cleaning up, or trying, some of the plastic bits from the wheel arches and the spring seat. Give them a bit of a clean up. And I suddenly remembered I haven't done this instruction here. It refers to figure 4, which is basically, so you have to remove about an inch of this. So I actually completely forgot about putting these back on the beam. So I shall have to get underneath and see how much or which bit I need to cut that inch away from. That's a bugger. So thanks for watching as always, guys. We're starting to near completion of this rear end refurb, so not much further to go. So yeah, please like and subscribe, hit the notifications bell, and I'll see you on the next one. Cheers.